Taylor Christian. Present. Terry Lally.
Here.
Amy White.
Here.
Ralph Wentz. Here. Corey Oakham.
Here. All right, first up on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the regular meeting on February 12, 2018, and the special meetings on February 22nd and February 28th and March 6th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the financial report. Mr. Phillips.
Okay, the current cash fund balance as of the end of February in the regular general account was $1,817,043. Encumbered against that, $953,168.68, leaving an unencumbered balance of $863,831.75. Bond issue, bond retirement fund. Current fund balance, $914,418.46. We will have a payment in June that I'll need to encumber soon. Going down to the grant funds, the 500s at the end, you'll see that while we have some negative balances, they're a lot less negative than they were before. That's because we run in project cash request monies, and those will run in, it's to some degree, in the negative until the end of the year when we reconcile a grant. Our all funds cash balance, $3,022,227.60. Encumbered against that, $1,126,581.57, leaving an unencumbered balance of $1,895,646.03. Of the balance of $3,022,227.60, we have $230,426.84 in the STAR account. Farmer Sweep account, $2,099,647.61. Our petty cash, $780,000. When you do the math, it comes out to a balance of $691,373.15. And that proves out as follows. Our regular farmer's account, $850,000 even. We had one deposit in transit from the cafeteria for $12. Outstanding general fund checks, $158,638.85. And that math does prove out at $691,373.15. You also received revenue account, appropriation account, and check pay report. And if there are any questions on those three or the one I just read, I can entertain those now. If not, that will do it for this month.
All right. Any discussions or questions for Mr. Phillips? Seeing as there's none, could I have a motion?
Motion to move.
All right. Chair motions. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. On to new business with Mr. Duncan.
Good evening, everyone. We'll start with our building level good news reports. Mr. Reyes with the elementary, please.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight for our good news, actually, we're going to be highlighting one of our high school teachers, Mrs. Adams. Mrs. Adams is here tonight. Mrs. Adams does a lot of work with our elementary students with her high school art program. Last year, she came over to the elementary and she presented a program called Elementary Art Connections, where our elementary students get to go and work with the high school art students. Each classroom has the opportunity for one period a day during an entire week to go over to her classroom, and they work with the high schoolers. Last year, they created their own minion using any kind of medium that they like, and then the kids voted on the top 3 from each grade level. This year, they have a Lego or a superhero theme. Next school year, the high school art students then take the winners and they'll create 3D models of each Lego or superhero from this school year, and they'll be displayed around the building. So we're really looking forward to doing this again this year. It was a great partnership last year. Mrs. Adams has also been running the Meet the Masters Art Club. This was something started a few years ago, and we've picked it back up this year. So we have 27 of our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders who participate. It's a 6-week after-school art program Mrs. Adams runs from her high school art room. The students learn about famous artists, and then they complete different projects based on the work of those artists. So they've worked with ceramics, watercolors, photography, oil pastels, self-portraits, and a little bit of music. Tomorrow's the last session of Meet the Masters, and so Mrs. Adams, I just wanted to thank you for all of your work this year with our elementary students. And this summer, Mrs. Adams will be running her art camp at the same time that Mrs. Scott is running her cooking camp, which will be June 4th through the 6th. So just a lot of nice things that we're able to do, some during the day and some after school and in the summer, with the arts and just more of the benefit of being here in our K-12. Some upcoming events in the elementary. We have our 3rd grade spring music program from Mrs. Vizdos this Thursday, the 22nd at 1:30 and 7 p.m. The end of the 3rd grading period is this Friday. The South Range Foundation Night at the Races is this Saturday from 6 to 11 at the Shrine Club. Report cards go home on the 29th, and then spring break is March 30th through April 8th. That's it from the elementary.
Mr. Manis, thank you. Mr. Zolik, Middle School.
Thanks, Mr. Stone. Good evening, everybody. It would have been Saturday, February 24th, our 7th and 8th grade Power of the Pen teams competed at the University of Mount Union's Writing Competition. Both teams placed second out of 9 teams competing. Individual winners for 7th grade were Kelly Zolik, who placed second out of 51 writers. Abby McCabe placed 4th, and Elizabeth Protein, who placed 10th. Individual winners for 8th grade were Sydney Roadhamel, who placed 4th out of 55 writers, Ashley Johnson, who placed 14th, and Lauren Engel, who placed 15th. So we'd like to congratulate both of those teams. On April 14th, Mrs. Pettit, our guidance counselor, will be taking several of our female students down to the Women in STEM Career Workshop. That is at YSU, and it will expose young women in grades 6 through 12 to career opportunities in science and technology. In the morning, students will attend panels where women who are working scientists will answer questions about their lives and careers. In the afternoon, students will have the opportunity to observe and participate in real-life science work. Some of those hands-on activities include programming and problem solving, the fantastic world of physics, forensics, moving it with physical therapy, bioengineering, and chemistry. And then finally, our 5th grade students recently studied about sound energy. They made homemade musical instruments to demonstrate their understanding of pitch and volume. And I just have a picture to share with the board of sort of some of our students with their instruments. And thank Mr. Dunn, because I know that those instruments get bulky. They're making banjos and saxophones and drum kits and everything else. So that's it from the middle school.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rowan is next door with our 8th grade scheduling presentation. Capable hands, Mrs. Joanne Kane is here to share the good news from the high school.
Hi, everybody. I'm here to report the good news for the high school. The high school robotics recently completed their first season by competing in the state competition in Columbus on March 9th and 10th and finished 52nd out of 74 teams. The team qualified by winning the Mahoning Valley League Championship in February at the MCCTC. Members of the state qualifying team were Brendan Kujar, James Din, Albert Ding, Nicole Abend, Alex Kujar. Great accomplishment for the first-year team, and special thanks to Linda and Ken Kujar for all the time they spent with the kids. Second, South Range High School drama team presented their production of Once on This Island this past Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The show was seen by 1,200 people and received positive accolades from all. The 39 students worked very hard beginning in January and put together a wonderful play full of beautiful music, dance, and acting. One highlight during the rehearsals included a video conference with Logan Foster, son of Tom Foster, one of our school custodians. Logan is currently working in New York City on Broadway in an advertising firm that coincidentally is doing the same play as the students put on this year. The cast was able to ask Logan what life is like on Broadway and about his experiences working with the cast of Once on This Island. He gave many encouraging words to them and several had begun corresponding with him for advice and inspiration. This year's musical was a huge success, and we look forward to next year. Thanks to all who have supported the drama team throughout the year. lastly, the speech and debate team had a solid showing at the Ohio Speech and Debate Association state finals. As a team, they placed 31st out of the 89 schools who sent representation to the tournament. Individually, 6 students excelled. Troy Woloszewski and Hannah Freifogel advanced to the quarterfinal round in dual interpretation. 4 other students were state semifinalists. Anne Mariah Fitch in original oratory, Olivia Fiseska in informative speaking, Brianna Griffin also in informative speaking, and Christian Fitch in program oral interpretation. That's it for the high school.
Step our departmental reports, food service, Mrs. Pierce.
Good evening, everybody. As you could see from the piece of paper I just passed you out, there's a picture of me dressed up as Snow White. So this is from our fairy tale day during the elementary lunch. I actually, before this, I cut 9 inches off my hair and dyed it black, so everyone said I looked just like Snow White. So it was a lot of fun with the kids. There was a lot of creative costumes. There was Jack and the Beanstalk. There's a lot of big black wolves. So it was a lot of fun with the elementary students. Coming up in the cafeteria, we recently just kind of paired up with commodity fruit and vegetable program. So from now until the end of school, we'll be getting in a lot more fresh seasonal produce. We just started recently. We got a couple spring mix, fresh strawberries. So I'm looking forward to, as the weather warms up, getting more seasonal fresh items to bring in for breakfast and lunch. And that's it from the cafeteria.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Donnie Farron here, our athletic director representing the athletic department. Mr. Farron.
Yes, just to, since our last board meeting, wrap up our winter sports report. Swimming this year broke a total of 8 school records this year, both individually and as relay teams. So that was very impressive from our swimming team. We had Kyle Keenan. He qualified for the state wrestling meet this year. He didn't have the best draw in the world. His first match was against the defending state champion. But you know, it's a privilege. It's a privilege and honor for Kyle to represent South Range at the state meet. Our boys basketball team went this season another successful year. They went 22-2. Our girls basketball team finished up 21-5, and they went to the regional semifinals. It's hard to believe if you watch the news tonight with spring sports starting and the snowstorm in the coming days. Baseball and softball, they start their seasons this Saturday. Softball's home against Niles at 1 p.m. and baseball is at Scene Park against Cardinal Mooney at 3 p.m. Track season, the high school team starts on the 27th at Lordstown, and the middle school track will start their season on the 28th, also at Lordstown. Any further information you'd like to have about the athletic program, schedules, it's on our school calendar, it's on the athletic website, on the main South Range High School page. I've asked DJ Yoakley to come in tonight. For those of you who didn't take advantage of his services this year, he did something at no cost to the school. And I know there was some elderly people, graduate students who are spread out throughout the United States that could follow almost all of our sports teams this year thanks to him. And his company is ysnlive.com. They were a streaming company this year that came in and they started to, live stream South Range games. And, I think DJ is going to talk to you a little bit about they want to further it into every sport here at South Range. But DJ Yoakley from ysnlive.com.
I'll have to use this because I'm used to the teleprompter, so I apologize. Good evening. My name is DJ Yoakley. As Donnie said, I'm the founder and CEO of a streaming network called YSN, Your Sports Network. So if anybody didn't know what it stood for, that's what it is. My company is very much in its infancy. we're only 6 months old. So we came to Mr. Dunham, we came to Donnie, and we came to Coach Yeagley in the beginning of August with no concept, no proof of concept, no anything except a dream and a vision. And at that time, we had nobody. I think we had Letonia on board, and they rolled the dice on us, and we covered, since that time, we've covered 350 teams and multiple organizations. Tonight, I want to talk about, obviously, South Range. You see, when we were founded on a basic understanding that districts and teams like ours, and I'm from East Palestine, we don't get attention unless it's a very slow news day. And our goal is to put the student athletes first, to give them a platform to extend themselves out to the Tri-County area and beyond, with the hopes that anybody from Nana up in Verona, New York, that's my Nana, all the way to coaches and recruiters from sea to shining sea will now have the ability to follow their team or player of their choosing. In meeting with Mr. Dunham, Mr. Farron, and Coach Yeagley, like I said, I had nothing but an idea and a vision, and naturally it cost them nothing, so it wasn't much of a dice roll. But still, to protect the brand, I can appreciate that, what they did, what these three gentlemen did in particular, to choose to take a chance on my vision. Now it was up to me to execute. So here I stand, 6 months later, and a few magical South Range runs in the athletic department to update you on some of the statistics of what you all helped mold. So, three in particular. South Range Athletics have been listened to or watched in 37 states and 4 countries, including Spain, Mexico, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So those that are serving overseas are now able to listen to South Range and watch South Range. I thought that was pretty cool. Altogether, there have been over 22,000 active listeners to Raider broadcasts since late August. Which, if you think about that, I mean, and the showing you guys have tonight is pretty incredible. But Raider Nation is alive and well. So congratulations to you, and this is something that definitely, we had our eyes set on. And I've been approached by parents, family, and friends of those at South Range who love what we have to offer and love what we brought to South Range. And they actually hold listening and watching parties before, during, and after games. I got to share that the last playoff game, we were up in the box, and I saw people with headphones on, with YSN on their phones, and it was one of the coolest moments for me because they were actually at the game listening to what was going on. So thank you for that. You made my life. Our player interviews, one of my proudest things that I do is the player interviews for your student athletes. They've helped provide an outlet for athletes to be seen and heard and discussed outside just during the games. Our coaching interviews have given fans and families a realistic look at the type of character hires that you've brought into your district. So congratulations and good job. So why am I here? I'm not here to tell you about YSN. You guys obviously know about it. I'm here to say thank you. And not for allowing my company to do what we do, but for raising the bar in this community and communities around you. And here's what I mean by that. It's easy to follow the beaten path. Again, not to bash East Palestine, that's where I'm from. We follow a lot of times. South Range, you keep blazing the trail. And it's incredible. At one time when I was a student, I was jealous. And now, I love being able to help blaze that trail with you. As an outsider of the South Range community, I'm not certain you realize just how good of a job that you're doing for these students. I thank you for blazing the trail, for thinking outside the box, and for continuing to put your students and their families first when it's not always the easiest decision. I urge you to continue to take these calculated risks and to continue to raise the bar for yourselves and other districts, and to continue to brand South Range as you grow, as we fully anticipate that you'll do so. Lastly, even though I'm from a few miles down the road, I want to thank and I appreciate everybody for adopting me into the Raider family. I now wear maroon and gold like you wouldn't believe. I get all kinds of weird looks considering I'm a councilman in East Palestine, so that's about it. But I just want to thank you guys so much for making our vision come true when I had nothing. Now we have a lot of something, and obviously the proof's in the pudding. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your service to South Range. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you. Corporal Hartman, your Township Police, RSRO.
Okay, don't have a whole lot here, but just wanted to go over a couple of things. We had our school safety night along with the information night with Mr. Rowan about the vaping and that. I think it was a really good evening. A lot of parents showed up, a lot of folks showed up, and that's an excellent question, excellent input. that, we are doing some follow-up on to see if it would be practical for us. As far as also in the school, in my absence, whether it be a sick day or like the other day I had to be in court, we now have another police officer that will come in so that we're always manned in the school. There's always an officer in the school, whether it be for an hour. Like tomorrow, I'll be gone for about an hour and a half. There'll be an officer here for that period of time. A day, 2, 3, 4 days, multiple days. So there will always be coverage for us. And Wednesday, we're going to have our statewide tornado severe weather drill. The sirens will go off at 9:50 a.m. and the school will participate and do their part in the tornado drill here with all the staff and students. As far as the township goes, it's your typical routine type burglaries, domestics, not a lot of burglaries, they're way down right now. Traffic stop, DUIs, OBIs, drug arrests, that kind of thing. But nice weather coming, next week maybe. Gotta watch out, the bad guys will be out and about. Bad guys don't like cold weather. They just don't do much activity in the cold. But boy, they love those summer evenings, nights, and good days. So keep your doors and windows locked up, and if you see something suspicious, report it, let us know. If it's nothing, that's all right, that's what we do. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks again to Beaver Township Police. I had called Chief Frost a few weeks ago, asking if we could have any extra assistance in the mornings with patrols. Absolutely, didn't even have to think about it. You may notice more of a presence on campus or on Route 46 in the mornings. Same thing in the afternoons at dismissal time. So great partner with Beaver Township, and they've been very responsive to our needs, as well as Corporal Hartman and our SRO during the school day when he's absent, to have someone in his place. So again, thank you to Beaver Township. Next up, we have Mrs. Lewis, Curriculum Instruction Special Ed.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Dunham. Hey, everybody. Just 2 quick updates, one on the curriculum side and one on special ed side. I think I shared a little bit last month about the district was working on a literacy plan in collaboration with Mahoning County Schools. Since our last meeting, the county has submitted their grant proposal with 14 districts in the consortium participating. We are hopeful to find out if we did, I should say when we get the grant is sometime in April, so hopefully we'll be planning for that over the summer and incorporating some of those strategies into next year. And then on the special ed side, it's kind of Mrs. Adams' night because Poland schools and some of the teachers, intervention specialists in Poland have reached out to Mahoning County Schools and asked if we would participate in a special needs art show. So we're pretty excited that Mrs. Adams is going to send some of her art products to Poland. So we're going to have a little art show in Poland in April for our special needs kids. So yay, good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan, Transportation, or Mr. Dunn, Transportation Department. Mr. Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. Some good news from transportation. I attended the Ohio Association of People Transportation Conference. This was a great way to network with other supervisors, learn some of the tricks of the trade and find out new ideas that we can bring to our department here at South Range. Also at that conference, 2 of our drivers were recognized as the very distinguished award, the George Sontag School Bus Driver of the Year Award. Those drivers were Anthony and Janet Freedy. They received something to be proud of. This is the first time a husband and wife have ever received this award. Also the first time that anyone in Mahoning County has ever received this award. So it's great for our school district, great for our drivers, and great for our community. So that's it.
And this is for my students at South Range. I am employed by you, but my heart sincerely goes to to my students at Southridge.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Pagnotta, technology?
Right here. Good evening, everyone. I was not here the last meeting 2 months ago. I went down to Ohio Technology Conference, set into some workshops, networked with other tech directors, and it was very enlightening, very good information I brought back there. And one of the things on the technology side, which I'm going to talk about tonight, is that we're ready to file our E-rate, which is we get federal assistance for dollars. We are either 50%, 60% match. So whatever upgrades we do in the district for our infrastructure, we'll get 50 to 40% of that money back, depending on our discount rate. It's a very complicated process. There's a lot of gotchas in it, and I think they do that on purpose. So if you don't cross all your T's and dot your I's, basically you don't get the money. But one of the enlightening things is you measure where you stand when you go down to these technology conferences. Where do we stand as a district? And change is coming. It's here. We can no longer wait 7-10 years for a technology change. It's continuous, and unfortunately, we're hoping the dollars stay with us. But the way the federal government regulates the E-rate, we're not sure year to year if this funding's going to continue. Because in their eyes, any district that has 50% funding, before they funded everything internally. This is a new cycle that we're in right now for this type of funding. So I will show the board. I'll just peek in executive sessions and show you a contract if you look it over. We've gone from $200,000, that's a complete network refresh, all the way down to $46,000 total. Again, half of that, if we get the federal money, would be they would pay for that portion of it. And I think it's important enough because anytime you can do a network refresh to keep that technology bar up there for the students is a good thing. Also, I got some good news to report on our utility side. We often have these companies contact us. They come in, they say, hey, we can save you a lot of money. Your building's been in service now. Let's come in, let's do a study, and let's see what we can do. And they're consulting companies, right? And they come in and whatever they could do automation-wise for the HVAC, lighting. So they ran an analysis, a Green Star analysis on us to see where we fall. And I'm proud to report that after being in the facility for 8 years, we are still a 90% Green Star certified school. He was shocked as well. He really thought we could do something more, but we only fell 1%. We were 93% when the building was commissioned, and we're only down 1%. So it's excellent, and we try to maintain that. And I'll show the board this as well, and anyone else who wants to see this Energy Star rating. Also, we're continuing to research LED retrofit, and I did a cost savings analysis, and I'll show this. I'll pass this table. I'll bring these papers up. Basically, this paper shows what we can save every year if we make an investment on LEDs. Every year, our cost savings we'll have a cost savings every year. So it'll pay for itself until we get to 6 years, where virtually everything is paid for except for high pole lights in the parking lot. So I'll share this if you have any questions. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'm available and I can show you the math on that. And that's it. So
Thanks for your efforts, Mr. Pagnotta. I appreciate it. Mrs. Larry, Christian.
Actually, there's two things that is in the legislative right now. The OSBA Board of Trustees had adopted a resolution calling for the President, Governor, state and federal legislators to enact legislation to provide funding for mental health services, safety protocol, communication, and increased training to enhance school safety. So that is on where they adopted. And then One thing is the OSBA is monitoring and opposing Ohio House Bill 512. And what this does is to establish the Department of Learning and Achievement, to abolish the Department of Higher Education, the position of the Chancellor of Higher Education and the Board of Regents, and to transfer, with exceptions, the duties regarding the administration of primary and secondary education programs and all duties regarding administration of higher education programs to the Department of Learning and Achievement. What they're asking is for all educators to go on their site and oppose this issue and send letters to their representatives. So that's all I have for the legislation part.
As far as student achievement goes, I think one way to increase the achievement of our students is to cut down on bullying. I know it's never going to go away completely, and kids need to know how to deal with bullies because they still exist in adulthood, but it's not something that doesn't mean we should just leave it unchecked, obviously. As I walked in the building, I actually saw sort of an anti-bullying poster, and I think that's always good, but at the same time, it's an ugly truth that bullying is alive and well in this school. It's alive and well in every school. According to StopBullying.gov, 70.6% of students and 70.4% of school staff have seen it happen in school. 41% of school staff witness it weekly. I remember actually when I was in high school, we had an assembly where the speaker told us not to be bystanders. We noticed something, it was important to intervene. Staff, students, and parents all need to heed his words. Studies show that most incidents of bullying within 10 seconds of a third party's interference will end. So, I mean, if you see something, have the courage to do something. I know it's not easy, but it could make a difference for someone. I know cyberbullying has changed things a little bit, but at the same time, it is still the least common form of bullying. We can't claim that cyberbullying has changed the world so much that there's nothing we can do, because quite frankly, verbal and social bullying are still the most common. One thing that makes bullying so hard to fight is the fact that only between 20 and 30% of children that are bullied even notify their parents, any adults. This is because they fear backlash, being seen as a tattletale. They don't want to be judged by adults. They might already feel isolated to the point where they don't feel like anyone cares that they're being bullied, and they fear losing their friends. And friends are, quite frankly, the best defense against a bully. Just having them around has been shown to deter bullies from doing anything. It also gives kids a sense of belonging, and this combats feelings of depression and isolation that bullying can lead to. Other possible effects of bullying are anxiety, changes in sleeping and eating patterns, a loss of interest in things kids used to enjoy, a decrease in academic achievement, and an increased likelihood in dropping out of school. So what can we do to help the 28% of kids in grades 6 through 12 that are bullied? Like I mentioned earlier, we can intervene. If you see something, get involved. Parents, if you know something's going on, email the teachers, because despite 41% of school staff seeing it weekly, teachers can't be everywhere all at once all the time. They can't monitor the entire classroom 24/7. I mean, it's their job to teach. It's not, and while we do ask that they help, they can only do so much. They can only see so much. So if we know what to look out for, then we'll have a better chance at fighting it. Another thing that we need to do is just basically keep communication lines open. Listen to your kids, let them know they care, let them know that you care, and sort of check in with them every once in a while. Encourage kids to do what they love, because hobbies and special activities can help boost confidence, and through doing those you can help make friends. And I'd say most importantly is to model how to treat others. Kids learn from watching adults. So treat everyone with kindness and respect, whether you like them, dislike them, it doesn't really matter. You can still smile, wave. You don't even have to do that, just don't be mean to them. So all credit to the good folks at StopBullying.gov. That's where I got the information, the statistics that I had. And that concludes the Student Achievement Liaison. Thank you.
All right. First thing on our agenda is board policy consideration for April 2018 adoption, and this is specifically, am I skip this up there? Okay, sorry. This is specifically talking about the revised policy of public participation at board meetings, and I don't know, Mr. Dunn, you want to elaborate a little bit?
You all have the summary here of what is, has strike-throughs in terms of language. So we're taking out A and B, which eliminates, this would be the first reading here in March, be another reading in April. If it's approved, A and B would be, what you see, the strike-throughs would be omitted, and there would be no longer a 10-day prior to the meeting in terms of notification. Would still be limited to 2 minutes in terms of addressing the board, but would not need to be 10 days in advance. Or approved in terms of the topic.
And I think the biggest thing is if we approve that, I think there has to be a common consensus amongst everybody that while Mr. Phillips and Mr. Dunham and everybody on the board is pretty knowledgeable about a lot of things, we can't memorize 10 million facts. So there may be times where we may have to come back and ask for a meeting afterwards to clarify things. And I think that's pretty much understood. But is there any other discussion or questions about this policy from the board?
Just so then, after the second reading, would it then go in place in April, or would it wait until, would it go into place in May?
Most likely May, although it could be, well, it could be in April because if it's adopted, we have the public participation at the end. So,
Okay.
yeah, it could be April.
Any other questions or conversations on that? All right, next up is amounts and rates certification. Mr. Phillips? Oh, I'm sorry. Approval of the 2018-2019 South Range High School curriculum guide. Thank you, Amy.
Again, you have the curriculum guide. You would receive that on Friday. You have a summary of changes, very few changes in red. I took those, maybe you received that on Friday, I'm not sure what that. Summary of changes on Friday. Regardless, you have both in front of you. Mr. Rowan was at the scheduling meeting. I think Mrs. Berkey may be here. If she's not, she's going to stop in. If you have any questions, certainly either one of them can answer them, but you can see limited changes. Academic Honors Diploma, there's a couple CCP classes through Kent, and the last one on page 35 is the Inventor Cloud course offerings. Small changes there.
Is there any discussion or questions about that?
Yeah, about the some of the math classes with Kent. So it states that to earn the college credit, you have to have an ALEC score of 45, or there was I think something about an ACT score being comparable ACT score. Is that something that's set by us, or is that set by Kent State?
Yeah, it's something that's set by Kent.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, now it's Mr. Phillips with the amounts and rate certification.
Each year in March, or by March 31st, we have to adopt amounts and rates for our existing levies. The county auditor and budget commission recommend rates to us. We don't have to take them. We usually, in the past, have been pretty close. One of the things in the past that we did with our bond issue is we kept the voted amount of the bond issue, and from the 1992 issue, we were able to pay our bond off very early. You may recall some of the older people in the room that in the 90s, we used to get interest on money in the bank, and you get a little bit now, but not enough to pay our bonds off early. So we did have our bond issue, the 7.9 mils that were approved by voters to build this building. A $500,000 was for the permanent improvement. That was required by the state in order for them to say, yeah, we'll be your partner with this. But the 7.4 mils that was built for our share, our 48% share of building this building, is now going to go down to 6.6. And so we're saving 0.8 on that one, 0.8 mils. The $500,000 permanent improvement stays at a $500,000. We had a 7.6 mil emergency levy voted on in 1988. That was down to 2.2 at this time 2.4 at this time last year. That's going down again to 2.2 mils. Our $558,000 levy that was passed in 1996 at 6.9 mils was currently being collected at 2.9 mils. I'm sorry, at 3 mils, and it's going down a tenth of a mil to 2.9. And our last emergency levy, it was voted at 5.9, currently collecting at 4.3 mils, goes down to 4.1. So our total millage, we're going to save 1.3 mils, or the taxpayers of South Range will save 1.3 mils when these are adopted. These are in effect for next year. If there's any questions, again, we do this every March. It's required by law that I ask the board to adopt it and file it with the county auditor by the end of March.
All right, any questions or discussions for Mr. Phillips? All right, next up on the agenda is the approval of the agreement between the South Range Education Association and South Range Local Board of Education.
A couple things that might be easier if I stand and people can hear me. A couple of things here, as President Yoakum just mentioned, we have the approval of agreement between our SREA, which is South Range Education Association, and the Board of Education, and it's dated September 1st, 2018 through August 31st of 2019. It is a one-year contract. You may be wondering what's going on. Well, our contract with SREA, and in a moment I'll speak about SRCEA, the Classified Employees Association, those contracts were agreed upon 3 years ago, and they conclude, or they expire, the SRCEA at the end of June, and the Teachers or Certificated Employees Association expire at the end of August. One of the things that we've been talking about for 2 months now is the deficit reduction, and we'd love to be able to say we can sign a 2-year contract, a 3-year contract, but by law we're not permitted to sign more than what the treasurer can certify in terms of his projected balance. And Mr. Phillips has been good enough to share that we are able to sign a 1-year contract for the 18-19 school year. So what I'm going to be recommending to the board as they go back through here, we have 2 contracts, one for the Teachers Association, one for the classified. And the board certainly understands and fully recognizes how important it is for labor relations. Also understands how important it is for fair wages for all employees. And also we have budgetary constraints, so there's quite a balance there in terms of fair wages, understanding our budget constraints when we bargain, and that's always been the case in the past and even now. Our Employees Association, the certificated and our classified associations have been just magnificent to deal with. They're outstanding. We have good relationships. School employees, and as you know, in the last 2 months, the culture has changed. It has certainly changed. And the impact that we talk about, and you heard good news, but the impact that we have, that our employees have on our kids is just, it's been a huge responsibility. It always has been. The daily interactions with students, with parents, with community members is just, it's paramount. And we have an association, certificated and classified, to care about kids. And I do believe that a 1-year contract is, I wish we could do more. We have a 1-year contract that I would be recommending for the 18-19 school year. It would be the same terms and conditions as a 17-18 agreement. So the contract would start obviously for classified July 1. It would start for certificated on September 1st. And that's the SREA, and I can say the same thing for the SRCEA contract.
So any questions or discussions about either one of those? All right, next up is a suspension of certified contracts pursuant to reduction of force.
As you're aware, I've been standing up here for 2 months now talking about deficit reduction. The presentation last month, we talked about dollar amounts. We know that projected deficit at the end of the fiscal year 20 is $1.8 million. And we know that if we are able to take a smaller piece of that for this next school year and look at some reductions, and that would compound into the 19-20 school year, that we would be able to balance our books at the end of fiscal year 20. Without a question, this is the most difficult thing for me to talk about because we're talking about people. And unfortunately, in 2011, I stood before many of you in here. In 2015, stood before some of you in here talking about the same thing. 50%, no, 80% of our budget is through personnel. So, you know, when you look around the room here, we're talking about people because people make an impact and people make a difference when we're talking about education. Unfortunately, in the last week, I've talked to over 20 employees, classified and certificated, about their positions. Without a doubt, the hardest thing that I can do and the hardest thing that they can listen to. It certainly is not enjoyable on either end. Our personnel cuts have been talked about for the last number of weeks, and not easy deciding how we're going to go about this. And I can say this, and I want to be 100% clear, these positions were not eliminated because anyone did anything wrong, not because of their performance or not doing their job. It's unfortunate we're in a position financially that we can't support the folks that we have here. I was part of many of the hiring practices with the folks that I unfortunately had to talk to in the last 8-9 days. They provided resources that were necessary for our kids to flourish and continue to do well. And each and every one of them couldn't have been more professional as I sat down to talk to them about the reality that we made notification to 22 employees that they would not be returning at the end of this school year. So once again, very difficult. I can't tell you how important their positions are. The remaining folks in this district, they know they have to step up. We all have to step up, and we'll continue to do that because that's what we do here. So it's really difficult to recommend suspension of contracts, but we have, again, suspension of contracts for certificated and for classified employees. And that will be part of the resolution as we come back through. And I will go over names and positions. Okay.
Any discussion on that? Last thing we need to talk about is the South Range High School baseball trip 2018.
Annually, our baseball team, softball team head to Myrtle Beach. This year being no exception, Coach Hannick has asked for board approval as the team over spring break. They will not miss school days. Parents will be transporting their sons to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for a tournament April 2nd through April 6th. Of course, they'll be chaperoned by our coaching staff, and the parents will provide transportation.
Any discussion on any of that? Questions? All right. Make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, with that being said, we're now going to open it up to public participation. Just remember that our board policy states that each participant has 2 minutes to speak. It will be adhering to that. Do we have anybody wanting to speak for public participation?
I've got a question. What was, you approved the contracts, how much of a raise, did they get a raise, did they not get a raise, and how much was it?
Mr. Duncan, do you mind answering that?
Don't mind at all. It's the same as last year. It's a 1% raise on the base.
Why didn't they get 12.5%? Well, you took a 12.5% raise last year. If you're worth 12.5, why aren't they worth 12.5? You went from 80 to 90, that's a 12.5% raise. These people are only getting 1%. Why is that?
For one thing, he's taken 90% of what he used to get before he...
Jimmy, he's knocking out about $175,000 with his retiree hire plus what we're paying him, the $90,000. You make about $175,000 a year. You didn't need to give him $10,000 last year, but you did. If he's worth an extra $10,000, if he's worth 12.5%, I guarantee you all these people over here are worth an extra 12.5% also. Either that or you should give it back.
Okay. It's commensurate with what superintendents make. It's below what any other superintendent is.
How many superintendents are making 175?
A lot, not from us.
He's not rich. A lot of them rich.
No, they aren't, Rob, because I really name me one. Jim Saxon's making about 125, and he's one of the...
We're not paying him that. You look at his, we're not paying him 175.
Dennis Dunham is here every day more than anybody, and I'll stick up for Dennis. You go out to Jackson Milton. That guy out there works 21 days less, Rich, for more money, way more money than Dennis Dunn makes. That school, they don't buy books out there for those teachers. You know, the board agreed to give Dennis a raise. These teachers over here, they deserve a raise. It's people like you is why those people don't get it. It's not because of Dennis took his 12%. That 10,000, if you split that between them teachers, what are they gonna get?
But if we have 10 for him, Rob, we should have 12
Rich,
for him.
he's not making the money you're saying.
He is, but he is, Ralph.
We're not paying,
We're paying 100,000 of it. We're paying his 90
No, we're
salary.
not paying it, Rich.
Yes, we are. We're paying 90 plus we're paying the 100 that's his
No, we're
SDRS
not, Rich. You're
contribution.
wrong. You're just
All right,
flat out
we have-
wrong.
Ralph, you have,
Mr.
why don't
French,
you
we have reached the
resign?
2-minute
You have
limit.
no
Do you have
idea
anybody
what
else
you're
for
doing.
public participation?
Well, this is just an agenda item for public participation. I didn't realize that we weren't going to pass the gag order revocation on me tonight. So I had planned on participating in regular general participation because I've got a couple other things I'd like to add.
Sadly, that's not, we didn't pass that this month, Mr. French.
Well, I just think, you know, Dennis, if you're not going to give it back,
respectfully,
then you should resign.
Mr. French, respectfully, we've reached our limit there. Is anybody else?
Respectfully, I am still sitting here, obviously, I'm what everyone's talking about, and I've said this before, it's certainly not simple or easy to listen when somebody talks about whether it's salary or work or performance or anything like that. I retired 4 years ago. I paid into STRS my entire life. I'm getting the benefits of STRS, the benefit package, like any one of you have in your retirement package. I came back, retire, rehire, and I took a lesser salary than I did before. If you're asking me to give money back, no, I'm not willing to do that, obviously, and I have no apologies for what I make here. I work diligently like everyone else does, and I expect everyone else to work hard here. I work as hard as everyone else, and you know, I make no apologies for that. I'm sorry that people feel that way. I don't know if you're the exception or the rule here, but honestly, it is very hurtful. It bothers me. I'm going to tell you that I make no exceptions for what I do here. No.
How much money did we pay Rob to put in the baseball fields and the football fields?
That's not an agenda. That's.
Might as well throw that number out.
All right, we are moving on. Is there anybody else willing to participate in public participation?
Yes, I have a question. When you were talking about the school safety, and I did send an email, but I have one. A couple years ago, we got a little pamphlet about that safety hotline. Do we still subscribe to this?
I can answer that, and the answer is yes. Safe Schools Help Hotline.
And
Yes.
does it go out every year?
Yes.
Okay, because you made a point at the meeting about the woman who couldn't contact, the school after hours, so she went to Facebook.
The Safe School Help Hotline was listed in one of our annual publications. We have magnets that the school resource officer passes out to students, and our new students that enroll, they get the magnet and the pamphlet.
That just goes to the kindergartners and the new, say,
Anybody that comes into the district that's new to the
we don't
district.
mail them out to everybody, all the student families.
There's posters in the building, yes.
Well, I mean, posters in the building, that's nice, but this is nicer.
We do
For
subscribe
everybody
to it, to answer your
know.
question. Yeah. I don't know if you can add to that or not.
Well, we actually have two hotlines for bullying. We have one that was a general, that was pretty much free of charge, and then we adopted another one that was minimal cost. And that's been...
It's based on enrollment.
We had that, well, we had it since we've been in this school. So in about 3 or 4 years ago, we got the second one. So, yeah, the bullying issue, I believe is covered. If we're notified of bullying, we address it. We don't let it go. I teach it in my DARE program. I've been doing this for 11 years with the DARE. Lieutenant Valentine was 11 years prior to me. And it's part of the DARE lesson from them. So 22 years of teaching this to the 5th graders. And we have bullying programs for the elementary. So it's not that we don't do anything about it.
No, and it's not, my mind wasn't even going to bullying, my mind was going more towards sport. And,
Which is
how
safety.
can we make sure that everybody's aware to call this hotline to
Well, like
express
I said,
anything they may hear?
a family generous enough, they actually, at their own cost, had 2,000 magnets made up We passed them out, they were available, and if you look in certain lockers, you'll see some lockers are just coated with the magnets. Other kids just threw them away, ignored them, never got home. The refrigerator magnets with all that Popeyes,
I got
people
it.
didn't have them at home. So, kids aren't very helpful a lot of times. Parents, you gotta know, that everybody wants to say, not my kid. Well, come on now, I've raised 3 boys. Yeah, my kid. Mine was bullied. My 3 boys were bullies, absolutely. I know that, and they were bullied as well. So a lot of it starts with us as parents, grandparents, keeping our kids in check and allowing them to know about it, telling them about it. But that information's out there. Like you said, that one incident where, the school was closed, they didn't know who to call. Why wouldn't you call the police?
Yeah,
That would be the smart thing, not go on Facebook.
exactly.
I mean,
And I
that is
just thought
just,
maybe if we could find a better way, some way to remind people,
because hours went
they
by.
wouldn't go.
I'm sorry, miss?
I thought if we could find a better way or another way to remind people, they wouldn't go to that stupid Facebook group. They go to this group.
Yeah, we probably put it out more often on on the school website as well, I believe it is.
Not a bad suggestion. Do we have any other participants for public participation? All right, seeing as there's none, we're going to go back through and vote on everything on the agenda. First item up is board policy consideration for the April 2018 adoption. Somebody move?
So moved.
Taylor moves. Do I have a second? Second. Ralph seconds. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the approval of the 2018-19 South Range High School Curriculum Guide. Do I have a motion?
I motion.
Terry motions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Amy seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the amounts and rates certification. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
I heard Ralph first. Ralph moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Terry seconds. Roll call.
Taylor Christian,
Yes.
Terry Lally,
Yes.
Amy White,
Yes.
Ralph Wentz.
Yes.
Corey Ogle.
Yes. Next up is the approval of the agreement between the South Range Education Association and the South Range Local Board of Education, September 1st, 2018 through August 31st, 2019. Do I have a motion move?
So moved.
Taylor moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Amy seconds. Roll call.
Taylor Christian,
Yes.
Terry Lally,
Yes.
Amy White,
Yes.
Ralph Wentz,
Yes.
Corey Ogle.
Yes. Next is the approval of the agreement between the South Range Classified Employees Association and the South Range Local Board of Education, July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ralph moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Taylor seconds. Roll call.
Taylor Christian,
Yes.
Terry Lally,
Yes.
Amy White,
Yes.
Ralph Wentz.
Yes.
Corey Ogle.
Yes.
Two resolutions, the suspension of certified contracts pursuant to reduction in force, resolved in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 33-1917, and the collective bargaining agreement in effect between the board and South Range Education Association. A reduction in force is necessary in staffing among certificated licensed employees of the district for financial reasons. Resolved further as follows, effective at the end of the 17-18 contract year, the Board of Education abolishes the following positions: 1 third grade teaching position, 1 elementary school counselor position, currently half-time, 1 career-based intervention position, currently half-time, and 4 tutor positions. Pursuant to the reduction in force, the contracts of the following teachers are suspended, effective at the end of the 17-18 school year: Carol Hoff, Lawrence Barth, Cynthia Maynard. Pursuant to the reduction in force, the contracts of the following tutors will not be renewed in accordance with the terms of collective bargaining agreement in effect between the Board of Education and the South Range Education Association: Madison Kurtz, Allison Zwingler, Amy Spencer, Cheryl Thompson. The treasurer is authorized and directed to notify the affected employees of the board's action consistent with the terms of collective bargaining agreement in effect between the Board of Education and the South Range Education Association.
Do I have a motion to move?
So moved.
Taylor moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Amy seconds. Roll call.
Taylor Christian,
Yes.
Carrie Lally,
No.
Amy White,
Yes.
Ralph Wentz,
Yes.
Corey Oakham.
Yes. Next is suspension of classified contracts.
Thank you. Be resolved, due to lack of funds, the Board of Education of the South Range Local School District determines the need to reduce the number of employees through layoff and abolishment of positions pursuant to Article 5.3 of the agreement between the South Range Local School District, Board of Education, and the South Range Classified Employees Association. The superintendent met with the president of the association to advise her of the reductions. The Board of Education determines to suspend the employment contracts of 12 aides, 1 full-time classified employee, and 2 part-time bus drivers, and abolish their positions effective at the end of the 17-18 school year. The Board of Education specifically suspends the employment contracts of the following individuals: Elizabeth Raygroot, Mary A., Colleen Kirsten, Christine Miller, Nancy Valentine, Lisa Lumsden, Holly Nagel, Davian Stanley, Jeannie Less, Gina Calpin, Rachel Garcia, Elena Yankowski, Dolores Brumbaugh, Carla Yankowski, and Andrew Peacock. Those individuals identified above who are on a limited contract shall be placed on the recall list for a period of 24 months. The treasurer is authorized and directed to provide notice to the above identified individuals of the board's action suspending their contracts effective at the end of the 17-18 contract year, and advising them of further rights under law in the collective bargaining agreement as a result of such suspension.
All right, do I have a motion to move?
So moved.
Taylor moves. Do I have a second? Second. Roll call.
Taylor Christian,
Yes.
Carrie Lally,
No.
Amy White,
Yes.
Ralph Wentz,
Yes.
Corey Oakham.
Yes. Next up is South Range High School baseball trip 2018. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Terry motions. Do you have a second?
I second.
Taylor seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Mr. Dunn.
One last thing. So our March update, as you know, we've had a very busy month. I'll just say it, I'm standing here and I'm able to have a different vantage point of everyone else. What this board just approved a few minutes ago, when I'm looking at people's faces, the impact is large and it's very broad for the people that I have spoken to, and I absolutely apologize because this is not a simple thing, as I mentioned before. People are what makes this school system. I have great faith that those folks are going to be able to land on their feet as well, and our school district is going to continue to work hard for one another. Corporal Hartman, a few minutes ago, talked about school safety, and obviously that's probably the most important thing that's going on in people's minds right now are your sons and daughters, relatives, any children that walk into our school, are they safe? We had the school safety awareness meeting a few weeks ago, trying to convey to parents that, and provide a comfort level that this is something that we work on each and every day. And obviously we do. It was well attended, and I think some of the things we got from that meeting, and hopefully some of the things that we shared, put people's minds at ease. Certainly not suggesting that our board, after that meeting, that's good enough or to continue to do what we do. We're going to listen to recommendations, some thoughts, best practices, so that we're prepared to move forward when we need to move forward in terms of school safety. Our kids have been doing some tremendous things. Last Wednesday, March 14th, we had an activity in both the middle school and high school in observance of the 17 fatalities in Florida. It was called What's Your 17 and Where Will You Be at 17? There were 2 dynamic activities that were planned by our staff, our teachers, our admin, our students. I don't know if Mr. Zolik would want to speak about it for a moment, or even Mrs. Berkey or Mr. Rowan. I do have the where we will be in 17 video. If you haven't had an opportunity to see it, I'd like to spend a few minutes and show everyone that, just to give you an idea of what is going on that's right here in our district, that you may have picked up the paper or looked on the news, and our students had a voice on March 14th, and it was very appropriate what they did. I couldn't have been more proud of our kids, our staff, and our entire community, because they really stepped up in times when they needed to be quite honest. There were no issues with kids walking out or even wanting to walk out. They wanted to commemorate, they wanted to do the right thing, and they did the right thing. And that's really been the trademark of South Range Schools for a long time. Kids, parents, students do the right thing. Despite things that might happen in here, our kids rise above it, and they'll continue to rise above it. I don't know if you want to add anything to it.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, and I'm sure some of you have seen it, it was sort of a nationwide initiative, basically started by some of the surviving students in Parkland. It was What's Your 17? Deb Staffeld sort of took this and ran with it. I owe a lot of this to her. We basically surveyed our 8th grade students and we said, what's our 17? What do we want to do to memorialize, I guess, the lives lost and sort of stand up to school violence. And they decided that we wanted to, during that 17 minutes, just provide 17 affirmations, 17 positive statements to students that they may not normally socialize with, may not normally talk to. It's just like Mr. Christian said and Officer Hartman, isolation, bullying, those types of behaviors are, let's face it, those are some of the behaviors that lead to this type of stuff happening in our schools. So we spent that 17 minutes just being real positive to one another. Our goal is to continue that, not just do it because of a school tragedy and for 17 minutes on one day out of the school year, but we want to make it a positive environment and encourage those students to talk to those that they wouldn't normally talk to on a daily basis, not just one day. So it went very well. I think all of our staff in attendance tonight would affirm that. So yeah, it was really positive. It's sort of along the lines of the don't walk out, walk up. Basically, walk up to another student, whether it's a handwritten note or a verbal affirmation, positive comment. That's how we approach that day.
Probably not. Mrs. Berkey, anything that you wanted to add to the high school side?
The high school participated, they watched this video, and it was where do you see yourself in the next 17 minutes, days, weeks, months, years, even hours, and thinking because unfortunately of 17 people that no longer have that option anymore, letting them make the most of those 17s, whatever those are. And I led a group of students, and I felt they were very respectful of it, and even some students that wanted to go to the gym, which they were allowed to afterwards, they respectfully participated, watched the video, and I think it was, my group, I know it was good, I felt. So I can only speak on mine, but I think thinking about where you are, that's what students do, but understanding there's people there who don't have that anymore because somebody chose to take that from them. And I think that's where they have to put that into perspective of themselves, because that's who they're thinking of right now in their age.
Well said. I'll play.
We are taking time today to honor these people and to commit to change. Sometimes change is dictated from above, and sometimes change is brought about by a groundswell of support. But true change, positive change, never comes from hate. Hating a wrong and telling everybody you are angry and telling other people what they need to do for change, that's not change. That's just more hate and anger. True change, positive change, comes from within each of us, from believing in what we feel is right, and from us becoming the change. are the voice of our conscience. Use this power to build up, not tear down. That is your challenge.
We come together today to recognize and appreciate all of the good that we have. In honor of the 17 victims of the Parkland shootings, we're going to ask you to reflect on some upcoming 17s of your life. In 17 years, I will be celebrating my 70th birthday, hopefully surrounded by family, grandchildren. We will be celebrating life, not just my life, their lives, and your lives. They'll hear plenty of stories from Grandpa. Your stories are you. How about sharing you with your classmates, your teammates, your family? All stories have value. I have studied the past and read people's stories. Because of you, I have also seen the future and lived your stories. Most of your stories haven't even been written yet, but written they will be. The poet Robert Frost wrote, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep." Be safe, be good.
Mr. Dunn, was there anything else?
I do not have it.
I'm sure, yeah. Good.
Before we go into executive session, I just felt it pertinent to speak to the group that's here. You know, we talked a lot about, and we made the motions to have 21 or 22 less employees next year. I can tell you that each and every one of you sitting here, that it took many meetings and many hours of conversation amongst the board and Mr. Phillips and Mr. Dunham to get to this. It was not easy to talk about, and having 21 less and 22 less employees, people, no matter what you make in your household, you learn to live within your means. I think we all do that. And I don't care if you're somebody that's making $100,000 or if you're somebody that's making $15,000, your household becomes dependent upon those dollars. And so we know that we are changing 20-some families' lives by not having these people back here next year. And it was very hard to come up with those decisions, and they were not made lightly, I can tell you that. And some of the people may be sitting in here tonight. That said, we will be able to stay within our budget, within our means in the 5-year forecast. But trust me when I tell you, this is not a long-term solution. If we can't balance our budget, we'll have to continue to make more cuts on down the line. Lastly, I'd like to address, because I'm probably the only sitting board member here, to talk about Mr. Dunham and what this board has elected to pay him. I will tell you that I personally, back when he retired, because of the financial distress we were in at that time, that I asked him to take less money than what he could have taken elsewhere. And at that time, it was just under $80,000. He does not take hospitalization through this school district. He was able to take that through his wife. And he felt compelled to stay in this district for less money than what he could have taken elsewhere. And trust me when I tell you, he could have had jobs elsewhere because of his compassion and love for the students and also for the employees within this district. He stayed at that wage for 3 years, and when we raised the wages of our existing staff, he stayed at that wage, and he did not take an increase like every other person in this district did. So when he was re-upped again, the board had a decision to make to rehire him or look for somebody new. And I, once again, was adamant that he try to stay within this district and guide this ship, and felt that at that time he was worth $10,000 more. And I would vote and do all those things over again. And trust me when I tell you that probably the last 2 weeks have been weighed very heavy on him. It has weighed very heavy on me and every board member sitting here. I have lost a lot of sleep over this. I do not feel good about it. There's nothing to smile about, but it's what we are having to do in order at this point in time. So I hope that each and every one of you here understands the difficulty that each of us have had, the board members, Mr. Phillips and Mr. Dunham, and the principals and our administrators in this building to try to get where we need to be. But ultimately, that is what we are elected to do and what we have to do, because if we do not, somebody will do it for us. So I hope for better times that lie ahead for our district as we move further down the line, but trust me when I tell you, it's not an easy thing for any of us to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. All right, this time we're going to be talking about going into executive session. We will be going into executive session under Ohio Revised Code 121.22 for the purpose of confidential discussion of employment of a public employee or official, to discuss the compensation of an employee, to consider the sale of property, and to discuss school security protocol. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Terry motions, do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have seconds? Roll call?
Taylor Christian.
Yes.
Terry Lally.
Yes.
Ralph Wintz.
Yes.
Amy White.
Yes.
Corey Oakham.
Yes. The board moves into executive session at 8:19 p.m.